Hello, everyone, and welcome to October's episode of the Nightmares to Miracles podcast. I am Brittany New, and I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning. And today we are going to talk about miracle mindsets, as we do every single month on this show. And today is a special day because it happens to be the last day in our year series on vision. So Dave has a really excellent lesson for you guys today, and I'm gonna ask questions. He also has a really wild experience that he's gonna share with us gracefully, and it's gonna really blow your guys' minds. So you guys are in for a really special show today. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm based in the Netherlands currently, so I like to work with Dave on this because I help him collaborate with his media and ask him questions about these things, just like as if I was a viewer, like anyone who's watching who's not so familiar with this study that he's absolutely an expert in. So Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do with Miracle Mindsets and your business?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brittany. Good to be with you for this our October program, and it's the last one of our series, as you mentioned, and the theme starting in November and then December of 2024, and then carrying on into 2025. The new theme will be on light in A Course in Miracles, right? So it feels like it's a nice follow up to Vision. And because I know, again, we're not talking about physical vision, but uh, the easiest way to see something in the dark is to turn the light on, right? So uh, I imagine that we'll learn a lot of comparable uh, pointers and lessons about the spiritual light that can illuminate our spiritual vision. We've done a whole year on vision. We're about to pivot to light once we finish after today. So, yeah, I live in Florida, which is every time I've said this by way of introduction, it's got a certain charm to it. It's like, oh yeah, sunny Florida. I love Florida. Florida's great. And one of the themes through today that you were alluding to is that I was caught in a tornado uh, 2 Wednesdays ago. And so this is, I forget the actual precise date, but 2 Wednesdays ago, and at 5:15, I can remember the time, and we were waiting for Hurricane Martin to come through, and the hurricane occurred in the house at my house at 8 hours before the actual hurricane came through. And when the hurricane itself came through, it was just a lot of wind and rain. The real devastation was from the tornado. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But I still love Florida. Florida's a great place, not intending to move or anything, although you hear a lot of chatter across the internet about people saying, I can't take it anymore. And I mean, that's understandable if they've just gone through repeated devastation time after time. So I live in Florida, and I do this miracle mindset work, as you pointed out, Brittany, and it's evolved uh, by degrees to miracle mindset work with leaders who are in what we might describe as the high or ultra high net worth demographic, right? So that's my clients are typically people at $20 million and up, all the way to $1 billion, and I say all of that to quickly contrast the other impetus of this work, like through this uh, podcast and my book and um, other social media platform presences that I have, to indicate that anybody can take advantage of it. The book, it hovers between 99 cents and $5.99 as a Kindle book, or around $20 as a paperback. So anyone can avail themselves of what's in it. And the way we talk about things on this show, Brittany, you and I, is to make what we do and what I do as widely accessible as possible, even though my bread and butter has moved by degrees to this demographic. So, miracle mindset, it's a miracle. I define a miracle as a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve, right? And sometimes I'll have conversations with people in which they'll have this starting point of a miracle is something mysterious that's benevolent, but we don't know how it came about. And when I say this definition of miracle, let's say somebody had a terrible accident and they couldn't breathe and they were losing breath and they had a sense that they had 30 more seconds to breathe and live. And then somebody came and pulled them out. And I say, was that a miracle? They'll be like, oh, I don't know if that was a miracle or not. I'm glad to be alive. Now, if I say you experienced a solution to a problem that was impossible to solve, which is getting out of that tight space where you were with diminishing oxygen and just had a few seconds to live, they're like, oh yeah, then that's definitely a miracle. Absolutely. So again, it's not just words and it's not just technical mishmash. It's like there's a very specific reason we're using this definition, which almost always has to do with being rescued from something, by divine power. All right, so miracle mindset, we bring that to bear on very wealthy people who could be facing legal problems, health challenges, relationship challenges, business challenges, even financial challenges, all the things that we experience as human beings, extrapolated, multiplied, amplified by their visibility, by their influence. So it's a real pleasure and privilege to help clients understand how to wake up from the nightmares they might be in, at that elevated level. All right, so just a few other preliminaries that we always talk about here, and then I'll hand you the mic. So we did vision for this whole year. We're going to do light. Already mentioned that. I've been carrying lesson 47 as an anchor lesson. I did it in 2023. I did it in 2024. God is the strength in which you trust. The reason this lesson has been so powerful to me is that I really don't like the feeling of fear, panic, anxiety. I don't like those feelings. And lesson 47 talks about how if we really place our trust in the divine to protect us, if we consciously do that all the time about everything, we won't be afraid. And I've been training myself to live in such a way that I'm not, as I used to do a while back, living in panic and fear all the time. So that's one point I wanted to cover. And then let's see, this is a really wonderful part of the show coming up. So Brittany, our relationship over time, the journey that we've been on. I like doing this each time and keeping it fresh and alive and not just repeating things mechanically. So we've been together on this journey for 4 years now. I think we'll be going into our 5th year, which now begins to have some real heft and dimension to it. So we met when I was in need of some basic makeover work for my very shabby worksheets that I used to send to my clients. And the stuff you returned was just, I was wowing all over the place. I was like, wow, that's amazing. You're doing great work. And so we had a good initial experience around that work. And then I made another request. I want to do an online course. I've recorded some very rough audio things. Can you bring them to life a little bit with some video, some visuals? And you did a great job. Outros, intros. You just made the whole thing much more interesting. And this was helpful to me in the sense that I was going to use the course to then create my book, right? And so the way you brought it alive was kind of inspiring to me and motivating to me, and it helped me get through the process of creating the book, Nightmares to Miracles. Uh, and then this, where we are now is that I was like, yeah, okay, who could I partner with? I don't want to do podcast shows or whatever they're called on my own. That just seems so dry and boring, I mean, and so I was like, oh, prayed about it, meditated on it, and then ushered into another miracle. I was like, well, ask Brittany. Maybe she can do it. Maybe she has time. I hope she does. And you're like, yeah, sure. I mean, we can do this. So that's how we got started on this 4-year journey. And exquisite. I mean, the miracle part of this is that we're recording raw footage off of the Zoom call. You'll take it and make it into a blog article for those who want to just read things really quickly. You'll create an audio podcast from it for people who might be driving and want to listen, not be distracted by visuals, or you'll create a video podcast for people who want to see what we look like and what the dynamic is and what's going on between us as we talk. So, and you'll post all of this, and then I can use it in my newsletter, and I can use it all over the place in whatever ways I want. It's just amazing. It's really, really been miraculous for my business. So, over to you, Brittany. Anything you want to say? I've talked for a little bit. Anything you want to react to or comment on?
No, thank you so much for that shout out. That's very, very kind. And it's been a pleasure working with you too. I always say this, it's such a positive thing that I get to do every month as well. A lot of the work that I do is in subjects that I'm not personally interested in or that I necessarily think is changing the world. But this is one of those projects that's definitely affecting people. And we get so much feedback from people watching about how much they enjoyed it or even just different thoughts they don't want to write in the comments. Maybe they come to us about little criticisms too, but we just love the engagement. We love hearing anything that you guys that comes to mind, and it's always an open dialogue for you guys to join in on. So yeah, I don't work with a lot of people. I don't work with anyone in person. Dave forgot to say this time we've never met in person, I think. But this video call, I also don't do this consistently on a month-to-month basis than any other client. So this is the most consistent meeting. An hour a month is more than I even talk to my parents and see my parents sometimes. So this is really special for me too. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really important point, right? We've never actually met in person. That's another kind of quasi miracle of technology and doing all of this
I've been in
together,
Europe
which,
most of the time. You've been in
yeah,
Florida most of the time. So
that's
it's
right.
really, really
Yeah.
modern.
It is. It's so cool. And again,
Mhm.
we've bonded over the years and,
Mhm.
just do really, really, I think, good, exciting work together. And somebody's like, yeah, don't break your hand patting yourself on the back. But the other thing that I like too is I love using that phrase ever since I learned it a couple months ago. It's like, the other thing I really like too is like one person was telling me, and a couple other people sort of chimed in along the same lines. They were like, yeah, I just binge watched the whole year of your shows. I was driving on a long road trip and I just binge watched everything, listened and listened and listened. I was like, wow, we are like being binge watched. Like,
I get
that's,
it. I get it. When
yeah,
you find something you like, you don't want to put it down. So I think it's great that we have this long form show and that we have lots of them. So binge watch away, guys. One day I'll be binge watching it too, just to reminisce about what we've talked about. I haven't done that yet, but I'm sure it's coming soon.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Beautiful, beautiful point to make. And as we go into the theme of light in A Course in
Mm.
Miracles for 2025, um, what you just reminded me that this is a repeat of something we've done before in my community, online community.
Mm.
And I don't remember very much of what we did the first time we did it.
Mm.
And we weren't recording and
Mhm.
we didn't have the show.
Mhm.
So we had, I felt like it was a good time to revisit the topic and that theme.
Mhm.
And so the whole idea of having a record of what we've been talking about to
Mhm.
go back to,
Yeah.
if we had it at that time, I could easily have refreshed my memory
Mhm.
about some of the things we talked about. So anyway, it's all connected. So well, great. So for today's actual content, then. Oh, and the other thing is, Brittany, where can people find you?
Oh, yes, I have a website, brittanynew.com. I also have a YouTube channel. So if you just search my name, Brittany New, I have some tutorials about how to make your own media projects. And I'm going to get into some series about podcasts and things like that too, because I was recently speaking to some entrepreneurs, and I think there's a really big growing demand in people wanting to do it's been happening, but maybe I'm late to getting to the part of educating people about how to do that more seamlessly. So, and actually things change overnight in terms of what technology is available, and it's a bit challenging in my field to keep up with all of that when I'm trying to help people learn, because they learn something and then it changes. But yeah, if you want to try to keep up with me, then you can go to my YouTube channel also.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I've visited
Thanks.
everything and do check in periodically. You won't be
Mm.
disappointed. Uh, Excellent. Yeah, it's an extension of the quality of work that I've actually
Mhm.
experienced firsthand in uh, my own products and services that I deliver, and how you've enhanced the quality there. So, all right. So, thank you for that. So, we'll pivot now to the content for today, and we've got two parts. We've got the first one, which is lesson 271. Lesson 271. Christ is the vision I will use today, or Christ's vision is the vision I will use today. And then we have also a section from A Course in Miracles, which just poses the question, what is the Christ? It's a separate section uh, intended to be a companion to the lesson, but it's a companion for 10 lessons in this section of A Course in Miracles. So, what is the Christ? So, we'll weave those two things together. So, here's right off the bat, here's what the lesson says. It's very short, as most of these last lessons in the year have been from A Course in Miracles. It says, each day, each hour, every instant, I am choosing what I want to look upon, the sounds I want to hear, the witnesses to what I want to be the truth for me. Today, I choose to look upon what Christ would have me see, to listen to God's voice. So, the reason I think this is so compelling is that it's got an urgency to it, right? It's like every moment, every second, all the time, with every thought. Um, we're being urged to really want this vision, this approach to vision that we've been talking about all year, which is from the inside out, right? Um, and how we can look at things and see the divine light and purpose and goodness in just about any situation all the time, or any person all the time. And so I really like that call. It's also sort of the call to action in a way, right? The prayer, the exercise. Each of these lessons has an exercise. And then just to tie it really quickly to the Christ's vision, that section, additional section that we're looking at. Um, this whole passage talks about, for instance, the way we were originally created, all of us, right? No matter how we manifest in the physical world, at the spiritual level, we were all created perfect, right? So it says, for instance, in the opening sentences of what is the Christ, this passage I'm alluding to, Christ is God's child as God created the child. God, uh, Christ is the self we share, uniting us with one another and with God as well. The Christ in us is the thought which still abides within the mind that is our source, the God source. This Christ in us has not left the Christ's holy home, nor lost the innocence in which this Christ was created. So it's really just an extended riff on an original state of perfection out of which we were created perfect. And there's a myriad of questions that can come out of that. So if we're created perfect, why this crazy stuff we live in, right? And so I'll introduce this experience you alluded to at the beginning, which is a tornado. Uh, I was getting ready for Hurricane Martin, which was still about 8 hours away, and I was listening to the news, and they were like, "Oh, there's a tornado in our area. It's touching down," and they kept using this phrase, "It's the real deal. It's the real deal." And I was like, "It's the real deal? What does that mean?" Well, within 5 minutes, the tornado, I should say, was in my house, blowing me around. I got up to run downstairs to tell the rest of the people in the house that there was this dangerous thing that was coming. It was upon us. And I got knocked down 2 or 3 times just trying to get there, and things were flying all over. I decided to just lie on the ground in a little sort of corridor between my where I was in my room and then the stairs going downstairs. And at this point, I was just trying to protect myself from flying debris because I was like, yeah, something could really hurt me the way stuff is flying around. And then within 3, 4, not more than 5 minutes, it was completely quiet. The tornado had gone, And I walked downstairs, and the house was trashed. I mean, everything was torn up all over the place. Obviously, no water, no power. And we were all kind of in a daze, like, okay, is everybody okay? What happened? Went outside, and somebody was walking by and was holding up a picture, which was of my sister and her partner. She had a beautiful, nice portrait. And he was like, I found this down the street. This was like within like 30 minutes of this happening. And he said, does anybody know who this belongs to? I said, oh, that's mine. That's my sister's. And he said, hey, by the way, you're welcome to come stay at our house, 3 houses down. And then I went and told my family, I said, we've got this guy, and here's a picture. He just found it outside. And he lives several houses down, and he says, we can come stay. And I said, let's go take a look. Because there was no way it wasn't livable. Not at all. I mean, you didn't need anybody to tell you that. So we went there, and they had a little bit of water and a little bit of electricity. Their house was not really damaged. And we stayed there the next 2 nights. And then, long story short, I want to get bogged down in the details, but then we found a short-term rental. And, excuse me. Anyway, the level of devastation all around was out of this world. Our neighbor's car, a Honda SUV, had landed in our walkway, and it looked like it had been in a car accident and had been totaled. I mean, and then his two other cars were like, sort of meshed together. It was just unbelievable level of destruction. So, I mean, obviously, my laughter is nervous laughter. I'm not making a joke out of it. So, Brittany, the thing that you and I talk about when we talk about miracle mindset is that this is the first time in the time we've been talking together where one of us has experienced a near catastrophic experience, a real nightmare that has just catastrophic implications, not just for me, although they're not that catastrophic really at the end of the day, but for other people who lost their lives, who have been maimed by this, who have been mentally overcome and assaulted by this, just all the things that go into this level of a collective nightmare. And I had people from all around the world checking in with me. Are you okay? Are you okay? We see this. This looks terrible. It looks really bad. Are you okay? Fort Pierce, where I live, and blah, 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 blah. So, not what the people were saying. I'm not referring to that as the blah, 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 but just the media and the hype and all of that. Um, so, where I would like to go with this, with your help, Brittany, is to use the two things that we're working with in our passages. One is to keep a sense of divine vision all the time, that's rooted in this perfection that we were born in. And one of the underlying assumptions of the Course in our process, which is that everything else is a nightmare, that we are dreaming because we're somewhat asleep. And um, now, if somebody has experienced loss of life or loss of life of close relatives or property or been maimed or is just seriously in a catastrophic place, no food to eat, no electricity, no place to sleep, no money for anything, to just pontificate that they're in some kind of nightmare and they need to wake up spiritually, that doesn't quite cut it. So let me pause here and just see what your comments or thoughts, anything at all. We're just riffing here on the top.
Yeah, there's a few lessons from A Course in Miracles that are really good to keep in your arsenal of mantras, you could say. So, God is the strength in which I trust is a good one, that it's not negating any of these experiences that you're having, but it's just reminding you that there is a strength available to you that you can trust in at all time. And is that lesson 47?
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, God is the strength in which I trust. That would be just on repeat, in a moment like that. And I'm reacting, everyone watching my dynamic, as you said, for those of you watching the video podcast, it's the third time I'm hearing this story, but it doesn't get easier to listen to that being someone's reality, because anyone who hasn't experienced that should instantly appreciate the fact that that's never happened to them. So I'm not faking this reaction. It's just every time it just makes me grateful. Like, whoa, that I don't know what I would do in that situation. I was just telling Dave not to compare my movie experience, but I watched this Twisters movie earlier this year that was pretty popular, and that even was like, wow, I can't believe people go through this in real life. It was a movie, but it was like an eye opener. I'm from California. We don't have tornadoes, so I never had to deal with that. We have earthquakes. And so far in my lifetime, they've only been a joke, but maybe one
Yeah.
day it won't be. So I don't know.
Yes. And hence the laughter from me. Again, I take this with all seriousness, but there's a kind of nervous, almost anxious,
Hmm.
almost panicky reaction to the experience, and with lots of
Yeah.
tears behind it too, right? I'm
Yeah.
just a moment away, and this is just a defense
Yeah.
against those really powerful feelings that you're
Hmm.
feeling, that I'm feeling,
Hmm.
right? So when we were prepping a little bit and talking, again, this is not all pre-designed. We just, as I mentioned, it's like a jazz group. Okay, what chords are we playing? What's the idea of the melody we want? And then we just play. We just interact naturally and authentically in the moment. I mentioned when we were prepping a little bit that you know I feel like I experienced a miracle, right? In the sense that the hurricane, I felt like it was on me. It was like a dragon, and it was like I'm smashing you with my tail, and I'm breathing fire on you, and I was like, okay, this could be it. I mean, something could really slice through me with all the things flying around. And um, so I escaped from that. But the part of the prep that I want to highlight here is that when one experiences a miracle in the process we've been talking about, a rescue, an escape from something, you know, miracle is a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve. The issue is not, oh, I got away with something. I don't really care about everybody else, and I'm gloating or overhyping my rescue. We want to be grateful and we want to celebrate, but the immediate pivot to like what you did with lesson 47 a moment ago is, okay, what about other people in their nightmares, right? That nobody escapes from a nightmare, no matter what miracles they're experiencing, unless everybody escapes, right? So the immediate pivot is what to do to help everybody else who might be in similar nightmares or worse nightmares of all kinds without gloating, without being smug, without being self righteous, right? So that lesson you picked up on, lesson 47, is a powerful one. If I'm rooted in my trust in God, no matter what's happening, I help everyone else, right? And then if I'm grateful for the fact that that strength of God can wake me up and it can wake everybody else from their nightmare, every little bit, like you said, of the whatever the affirmations are, the mindset principles are that we have in our toolkit, every piece that we use helps other people to be rescued from the nightmare that they're in, right? So again, it's fairly simple, and we're talking really about death, the fear of human mortality and what's going to happen to us, um, like in these dire circumstances. And the strength of God, the love of God, the power of God, the original image of Christ that we were born in, created in, I should say, has nothing but life in it, eternal life in it. And if we're holding on to that for ourselves and everybody else, then we're playing our part to make a difference. Now, I know it sounds a little bit like, oh, thoughts and prayers, in air quotes, and people make fun of thoughts and prayers. Like, we don't need your thoughts and prayers. We need you to send food. We need you to send blankets. We need you to send money for housing. And again, all of that is following in this for sure from all of us to those who need it. But on a spiritual level, I don't think that's enough to keep us connected to the lifeline, connected by the lifeline to the source of life that can change all of this, Gaza, people being killed there, the brutality of that, the conflict about whether you're pro-Israel and anti, terrorist, the Hamas thing, or I mean, all of those things. My point is that underneath it, there's a place in which we're attempting to all get more awake spiritually so that there's no more suffering. Okay, so let me be quiet, see if you have any thoughts about any of that, anything you want to add, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, another one that comes into mind is let miracles replace all grievances. And so in this case, well, typically a grievance is against another person, but in this case, you could have a grievance against Mother Nature or the government for what they did and didn't do in this situation. But focusing on all those grievances does block those miracles that you rely on. So um, I think that's another good one to have too, just to stay in that miracle mindset when everything around you is in turmoil. Mm-hmm.
It's a great one. That's a
Mm-hmm.
really great one. Let miracles replace all grievances. I love that. Thank you for invoking that. You know, and across Florida, um, there's just been chaos, right? So Helene, Hurricane Helene came in. I was in St. Petersburg. It's about a 3 hour drive from where I live on the East Coast, and St. Petersburg is on the West Coast. And I was at a few different events, um, and I mean, it was people talking about how Helene had just come through the week before, and how people were homeless and they weren't sure what they were going to do and where they were going to live and how to recover their stuff. And I mean, again, I wasn't gloating, but I was like, wow, you guys, I mean, you're in Tampa Bay. That hurricane came through and did a lot of flooding. So it's flood damage. And then I came back home that Monday and I was like feeling really good. Okay, I had this business trip. I met all these people. I'm praying for them. Little did I know that within 24 to 48 hours, I'd be in the eye of another type of storm. Now, no flooding, but this time wind. And you know, you do strange things. You know, I was like, okay, uh, I want to get it right. Wizard of Oz, not Alice in Wonderland. So, Wizard of Oz, I was like, you know, that movie it's tied to a tornado. And I just looked it up before we got going with the show, and it was the movie with um, who's the famous actress who was in it? You know better than I do, probably, or I can look it up.
Mm.
But Judy Garland is the one I was thinking about. Yeah, she's the most sort of famous sort of person in it. But you know, sorry for putting you on the spot there about that. But anyway, the point I'm making here is that I wanted to see how the early tornado scene in there felt. Was it realistic or not? And I was skeptical. I was like, that 1939, I bet they didn't get it right through special effects or whatever. I looked at it and I was like, okay,
Wow.
they got it. They were not fooling around. As somebody who was right in one just recently, again, I'm not going to be repeating that experience. But Twister, the movie that you mentioned, I think is worth watching, and I think I can watch it. But anyway, all of that to say that we're just all grappling with this different catastrophes in different ways, and this is one of many different catastrophes throughout the world. Whether it's violence perpetrated by humans against humans, whether it's corporate greed and all the stuff that goes on there, whether it's individual criminality, people kill. I mean, it's just everything, and we're just bringing all of that to the throne of grace and asking to be empowered to do our part to help clean all of this up step by step. You know, that's kind of the bottom line. So with the two passages, like the first one is about staying in this way of seeing things in which God is good and eternally on everybody's side, and then how we were created from this place of perfection, the Christ nature or the Buddha nature, if you like, and how over time we've somehow gone into a dream state in which these really just nasty things can happen to us, right? So that's kind of the bottom line of everything. So Brittany, you usually take us into any comments about or questions about application or calls to action, anything you have that you can think of for us today.
Well, let's see. Does the lesson have any, let's see, any recommendation here? It's a very short lesson, so it doesn't.
It is.
So in this
I'll say one thing
case,
if I
yeah.
could.
Hmm.
It says here, Father, Christ's vision is the way to you. What God beholds invites your memory to be restored to me, right? So, and this I choose. It's like, so it's very, very subtle, but just borrowing off of you going to the lesson and looking for it, it's like we're entreating for our original Christ mind to be restored to us. all the
Mm.
time under
Hmm.
any circumstance. If I could contribute that after I asked
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. And just adding on to that, that it's a conscious choice. I choose is what it says in the lesson. So it's a choice in every moment of every day with that urgency that it started with, to remind yourself of the vision that Christ has for you and your life and your future, and to let that be your reality rather than whatever you see in the movie, as we call it, in the reality in the body. So, yeah, and then on top of that, there's a lot of, as you said, a lot of nightmare happening in the world right now. I don't know if it's election season or I don't know what. It just feels a bit dark. And just giving your attention to sending that love and that light and that peace out into the world, in your community, in your family, in yourself. There's also a completely other topic, but one of those One Direction pop stars recently jumped off a balcony. So a lot of these nightmares are inside of people as well. We can't even count how many are internal rather than external. So yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. The pop star. That's been a big story
Yeah.
affecting a lot of people, and I really appreciate you bringing up the nightmare quality
Mm-hmm.
uh, that introduces into the world. The elections coming up. It's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a showdown
Mm-hmm.
going on. Like,
A lot of
what's
people saying this will be the last election, and I've been asking people, what exactly does that mean to you? What do you have in mind? I've gotten different answers, but none of it's good. So,
wow.
yeah. Have you heard that
Well,
phrase as well, or is it just in my circles? I
no,
don't
no, you're
know.
absolutely right. I've
Yeah.
heard that phrase, and I think Donald Trump was advancing that in his talks. He
Mm.
was saying that this will be the last election, and then people said, "Well, what does that mean?"
I think
And
Elon Musk said it too. I think that's where I
okay,
first heard it, maybe. But
okay,
yeah, they're the same at this point. So,
yes, and again, the I think the sense is that it was an implied threat
mm,
that there would be a dictatorship
mm,
from that point on. That's what the other
hmm.
side claims about it, right? That he's
Yeah.
alluding to dictatorship and like
I
beyond
feel
this
like they
elect,
both are, in a
right?
way,
Yes,
uh, alluding to
yes.
dictatorship. So, what does that tell us? No matter who wins, we're in a bad situation? I don't know.
Well, so that's one nuance of it. Absolutely. The other
Yeah.
nuance of it is that
Fear mongering.
yeah,
I don't know.
but also again,
Hmm.
not to do both sidisms. I don't
Hmm.
like doing that, but I think one of the things I heard, which is more charitable, is that if Donald Trump is elected again, he'll fix everything in such a way that what he really meant to say was we won't have these types of terrifying elections anymore. But that's a bit of a stretch. You have to
Mm.
modify some things in there. One last thing that is a bit freaky to me on this, you brought up Elon Musk. When I'm on Twitter on my phone, it's like every other post is from Elon Musk. I'm
Mm.
like, I don't know what that's about. I'm like, okay, I've been trying to do some research about the algorithm, and it's like every post is, and then there'll be some other posts. It's like it's really been dominated by him, at
Mm.
least in my feed.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if that's a real thing or if I'm just making it
Hmm.
up, or in
Yeah,
any
I don't
case,
use it, so I
yeah,
can't I
okay,
can't corroborate or anything,
yeah.
but he does own it, so he would have technically the right to manipulate just as Zuckerberg did back
Right,
then.
right,
So
right.
who knows? But I did,
My,
on another topic, recently watch this movie, The Manchurian Candidate, and that was a
okay,
bit
yeah.
eerie as well. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen the whole
Oh
thing through. It's one of those
goodness.
movies I've seen bits and pieces of. Is that with Denzel Washington or the older one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Denzel
And
Washington.
what's your takeaway from that?
Well, my takeaway from
The
that
enemy from
is
within, right? Yeah.
the
Hmm.
enemy from within, but on a more general scope, everything may not be what it seems. That's the general takeaway. Everything is probably very likely not what it seems.
Okay.
That sounds more likely than everything being completely transparent
Right.
to me. But yeah, it'll be a mystery to see how things go. And of course, America is the leader of the world in many ways, and whoever is making decisions in our country affects other countries. And so this does play into the collective nightmares that we observe and experience. So it's important. And what's more important is is, in our opinion, probably cultivating this mindset rather than participating in the day-to-day nightmarish activities.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love
Mm.
everything you brought. I love this part of our show too, where we discuss topical issues and what's going on in the
Yeah.
media, and we bring all of that to atonement or healing or
Mm-hmm.
the awakening process, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching a program on HBO called Rome, and
Mm.
there was season one and season two, and I watched it a few years ago, but this is about Julius Caesar in part,
Oh.
and him, being a real powerful leader in Rome, but over time becoming a dictator. And then those
Mm.
who wanted the Republic to continue to
Mm.
thrive, basically assassinating him, trying to use Brutus as the kind of the leader. But
Mm.
it's a well done series, and I've seen so many things in it that parallel where we are now from ancient Rome.
Wow.
Yeah, so again, I mean, that's just another piece of the puzzle here. So excellent. Well, good. All right. So I think we've completed our mission for today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, we love that people watch and listen and read. Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
thank you, thank you. Join us with your comments, either to Brittany or to myself, if you don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like posting anything
Mm-hmm.
on any of the places you can post. Um, and any final thoughts, and then we'll finish.
No, it's been a great show. Thanks, Dave. Mm-hmm.
You're very welcome, Brittany. Thank you for being such an amazing and wonderful dialogue partner in the process.
Mm. Thank you.
And, one thing I'll say is before we finish is that when people ask me about this tornado and I give my spiel about what happened
Mm-hmm.
and the miracles and this and that
Mm-hmm.
and praying for other people, I do like to add that I'm still in a bit of a daze,
Mm.
so it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
just feel like I'm coming at this in a very glib way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually in a bit of a daze. It's like
Mm.
I imagine it's what people go through when they've been through something
Traumatic.
traumatic or
Mm-hmm.
almost like concussion related. I don't have a concussion, but I just find myself zoning out,
Mm-hmm.
and forgetting things, and just it's like my mind is preoccupied with something that isn't in that day to day somehow.
Yeah,
It's weird. Yeah.
that makes sense in a way. Yeah.
All
Well,
right. So
I wish you recovery and in that element of your day because you want to be focused, I suppose.
yeah,
Yeah.
I do it, but I'm also,
Mm-hmm.
part of the luxury of talking with you about it and with others
Mm-hmm.
is that I can own it and claim it.
Yeah.
And as I sometimes say, nobody's going to die because of the work I do. That's probably why I chose not to become a neurosurgeon. It's like I don't want to be leaving
Likewise.
things in people's bodies, and it's like,
Mm.
oh, they died because of something you did. It's like, yeah, okay, the work I do is it's important. And the work we do, it's important,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but it doesn't have those levels of risk. So
Mm-hmm.
I do like to be focused and present, but
Yeah.
if I zone off a little bit
Right.
here and there,
No
nobody's
one's
going to
gonna
die.
die.
So,
Yes, that's true.
thank you. So I'll see you
All
next
right.
month. Looking
Yeah,
forward
I'll
to
see
it.
you
Yeah.
next month with a new theme on light. Very
Yes.
exciting. See you
Yeah.
guys there. Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye, Brittany. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.